Welcome back to FuzeTox channel. In this video we will read the article What's new in JavaScript after the ES2022 release. As of June 2022, the ECMA General Assembly has approved the ES2022 language specification. ES2022 will be the 13th edition of JavaScript since its inception in 1997. After the proposed new features reach stage 4, they will be added to JavaScript, which means they have been approved by TC39, passed testing, and have at least 2 implementations. Furthermore, features in stage 3, which have been approved by TC39 and passed the test but require implementation till now, may enter the ECMAScript by completing the implementations. So the first is a top-level await operator. Asynchronous functions have been used in JavaScript for some time now. In the previous versions, developers could not declare the await keyword outside the asynchronous function. If done, it would show an error message. We can now use await at the top level of models and don't have to declare them inside async functions or method anymore. This solves the synchronization issue. The top-level await feature will enable the following: delay the execution of current and parent models until the imported model is loaded. Models can use runtime values to determine dependencies, can be used as a fallback for dependencies. Constraints res equal await fetch URL const person equal res dot method text. JavaScript models will be capable of waiting for resources that require other models to import them before rendering the code. Import model getUser from .api_user const user equal await getUser method. Example for using runtime values to determine dependencies: let users if user type equal admin, users equal await import, else users equal await import another user. Private fields and method declarations. You don't have to invoke a constructor to declare a class field anymore. Now you can declare the class fields without calling the constructor. You can also directly declare the private class fields using the hash symbol as a prefix. Class user, username, date of birth, hash address. You can also set the methods and the accessors private using the same symbol, and we can also use getter and setter method simultaneously with it. This keeps the method and accessors strictly internal and prevents them from being accessed outside of the class. Class user, username, date of birth, hash address, get hash address, function, return hash address. Accessor properties are essentially functions that execute on getting and setting a value but look like a regular properties to an external code. Static class fields and private static methods. A static class field could not be accessed in instances of a class in the previous versions of JavaScript other than via the prototype. Class user, user.username equal to cn. The new edition of ES2022 features will give us the freedom to declare static class fields and private static features by using the keyword static. Class user, username, static user ID, static get user ID, return user ID. The static keyword can be implied for cloning objects, caching, and fixed configuration. Ergonomic branch checks for private fields. Private fields have a built-in branch check in that if you try to access a private field on an object that does not have it installed, it throws an exception. This is great. However, in order to keep the existence of a private field actually private, you would often want to check if an object has a private field, and if not, have some fallback behavior, which might even be throwing a custom exception with a message that does not reveal that I am using a private field as my mechanism. If you try to access a public field that wasn't declared in the previous versions, you would receive an undefined error. If you try to access a private field, you would get an error message. ES2022 introduced in operator to overcome this issue. By using the in operator, you will be able to check if a field is present in the class or not, even in the private classes. So class user, username, hash address, set hash address other, hash address equal to other, get hash address, function return hash address, and static hash address object, function with object argument return hash address in object. Method dot add for indexing, the new method dot add of indexable values lets us read an element at a given index just like the bracket operator and supports negative indices, unlike the bracket operator. The bracket operator process was easy unless you had to conduct a backward interaction, i.e. it required negative indexing. In the case of negative indexing, you had to refer to the string length and index from there. This process has been simplified by the use of the .add function. If we have array with fruits, console.log fruits at 0 return apples, and fruits at -1 return pears. Object.hasOn is a static method that returns true if the object has a specified property as its own property. If the property is inherited or does not exist, the method returns false. Const person object that create now person age21. If object has on person age, console.log person age. If person has on a property age, console.log has on a property person age. It is recommended to use this method of the object has on property because it also works for objects created by using object create.now and for objects that have overridden the inherited has on property method. Also, it's possible to solve this kind of problem by calling object.prototype.hasOnProperty.call object references plus property name on an external object. Object.hasOn is simple to use. Const person has on property function return false age21. If object that has on person age, console.log person.age. True, the implementation of has on property did not affect the object. Regex match indices. The new feature will allow you to use the character /d to express that you want the starting and ending indexes of the specified matching string. Previously, this was not possible. You could only obtain indexing data in the process of string matching operation. To retrieve the list of matches, you can use regexp.exec. This will return all the results one after the other. String match all. This will give you an iterator. Const fruits equal to fruits apple, oranges, pears. Const rejects apples gd. Const matches spread operator fruits that match all rejects. Console.log matches 0 error.calls. The error object and its subclasses now allow us to specify which error caused the current exception. Try const result equal to divided by 0 console.log result catch error console.log error throw new error something went wrong cause error. Now the cause of the error shows up in the stack trace and can be accessed via error.cause. Class static initialization blocks. Class static initialization blocks are a special feature of a class that enables a more flexible initialization of static properties. It can be achieved using per field initialization. Class user is active equal to false get status function. If it's not this dot hash is active, throw new error. User is not active. If not, return this dot hash is active. evaluate outside the class body, try const state equal user is active equal to state, catch user that is active equal to false. Static blocks allow statements to be evaluated during initialization, which allows initialization that, for example, include try catch or set multiple fields from a single value. ES2022 will permit developers to use static blocks to evaluate statements within the scope of a class declaration. This is useful in instances in which there is a need to set up multiple static fields. Static blocks permit access to a class's private states, methods, and fields, and allow information to be shared between classes or functions declared in the same scope. Let initial state class user is active equal to false, get state function if it's not this hash is active, throw new error, user is not active, return this not hash is active, static initial state arrow function this hash is active equal to this dot get state. This means that static blocks can also be used to share information between classes with instance private fields and other classes or functions declared in the same scope, analogous to friend classes in C++. Temporal Function. This is a stage third ES2022 JavaScript feature that is a substitute for the date object. Date has been as a long staging pain point in ECMAScript. Temporal functions are accepted to replace libraries such as moment.js. Temporal is a global object that will serve as a top-level namespace for the new date and time API, encompassing the entire spectrum of dates, times, calendars, and the time zones. It will function similarly to the Unix timestamp function. Const date equal temporal.now.plain date ISO gets the current date, date.toString returns the date in ISO 8601 date format. If you additionally want the time, temporal.now.plain date time ISO .toString date and time in ISO 8601 format. Summary: ES2022 JavaScript features have been launched in June 2022. However, the stage 3 features, including Temporal Function, haven't been released with the ES2022 update. Thanks for watching. Bye.